All right, so we start each of these like we don't know what's going on, but clearly we have to know what's going on, being that it is episode 22 of the Not an Accident podcast. I think that's accurate. I went back and counted, but I have Austin Gappelberg of the Hampton Chocolate Factory. Thanks for joining us, bro.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Well, I appreciate you. And, Hampton Chocolate Factory, or I like to call you the Willy Wonka of Tampa Bay. That's basically what I've referred to when people are like, who's your next guest? And I'm like, dude, I got Willy Wonka. I got the golden ticket. You guys own a fantastic chocolate shop in the Sparkman Wharf area. So just tell us how you got started. I think it was 2014 that I read. So tell us about that journey.
You definitely did some research.
Hey, man, I try, right?
Yeah, 2014. So it started as a family business, and that was when I was 13. My brother was 11. 24 now. So I like to joke, I've been eating a lot of chocolate for 11 years.
Enough.
And we basically took over the business 3 years ago after learning the insides and outs of it in the Hamptons, New York. So founded in the Hamptons, New York, reimagined in Tampa, Florida. And 3 years ago, I was a student at the University of Tampa. Grant decided to join me. We both were students.
And Grant's your brother?
Grant's my brother,
okay.
Yeah. And it was kind of that perfect opportunity. Why not bring the Hampton Chocolate Factory to Tampa? So that's what we did. And here we are 3.5 years later, and we've become what we call the decadent dessert destination of Tampa. And we're looking to expand beyond that. I mean, we're really just getting started. It's the first inning. We got a long ways to go.
Well, I mean, there's 9 innings in a game, even though they changed the rules a little bit and things are moving a lot quicker, but it sounds like you guys are moving pretty quick yourselves. Tell us about, there's so much that I want to unpack. So, but you're not in your main location in Tampa. So that's basically the kind of the headquarters, I guess,
the
mothership.
HQ.
Yep. So it's not just chocolate, though. You guys are doing what? Milkshakes and a bunch of different type of desserts and things like that?
Yeah, exactly. So the business is really broken down to 2 different verticals, right? So the chocolate is really a lot of the corporate gifting we do. So we work with businesses, whether it's finance, law, or any industry, helping them with gifts when they want to build relationships with clients or employees. And then in the store, the decadent dessert destination, right? So like you were saying, shakes, waffles, but our real big hit is our ice cream. We do ice cream sundaes. And then as of 2025, one of our new popular products is our strawberry cup, chocolate covered strawberries.
Really?
Everybody from University of Tampa is coming in on a Saturday, coming in to get the strawberry cup. It is the viral dessert of 2025.
So how do you, with all of this success that you've had, and we'll kind of go into a deeper analysis, how do you compete with the big boys? How do you compete with on, I guess, a global scale, the Hershey's and the Mars and things like that, and then on a maybe more local scale, the mom and pop ice cream shops and the Kilwins and things like that?
Yeah, it's a great question. I'm going to joke. I'm going to say we are the big boys. But in reality, and I'll give my dad some credit here because he always is an advocate for point of difference and, how can you differentiate? Well, with the Kilwins and the brands like that, the franchises, right? They can't move as fast as we can. What does that mean? And they can't get on the trends like we can, right? So we take advantage of opportunities. The strawberry cups, that was an opportunity that Grant kind of found using his social media research, which is the thing. Social media is the new search engine, by the way, if you didn't know. And
we're going to get into that, don't worry.
So he found the strawberry cups.
650,000 followers on their business page, guys, which is absolutely insane. So go ahead, please.
Yeah, that's true. And I think that's just Instagram, by the way.
Correct.
Too. So, but the Kilwins, they can't catch up when it becomes a trend, and they kind of they're stuck in their old ways. And the modern day is all about innovation. So that's kind of how we take advantage there. And the mom and pops, they're doing the same thing they did 50 years ago. And today's consumer of a dessert, they want something new and exciting. They want that Instagrammable moment, and that's what we can deliver.
So and I guess that comes down to, that's a great point. They want that Instagrammable moment. Is that, number one, it's got to be the taste, the experience, and things like that. But 2, obviously, there's got to be some built-in marketing there because word of mouth. I mean, obviously, marketing is, you were talking about Instagram, and then we'll, go into running ads and things like that, et cetera. It's not cheap to market anymore. So you have to create that moment where people can kind of market for you.
Yeah,
so,
user-generated content. That's the whole idea, right? It's like, how can you create this viral sensation? How can you create this viral experience where somebody gets a dessert, they have it, they have such a great experience that they tell 5 of their friends, right?
So how different, I guess, going into that, how how much do the small details matter when it comes to, I guess, creating a dessert or creating a chocolate or, creating some type of gift package? How does that, talk about that?
The difference is in the details, right? People always look past, oh, maybe I should just keep it black. Maybe I should just exclude, stop thinking, right? Make it easy for myself. Well, those are the people that are average. That's the average results. If you want extraordinary results, you have to do extraordinary things. Whether it's continuously figuring out the recipe to ice cream, figuring out the best packaging experience, or just figuring out what can I do to serve the customer more. Because really, in the end, it's all about the customer. And that's what we try to keep in mind every single day. I mean, our mission statement is to delight our customers through one-of-a-kind memorable experiences. And if we're not living by it, our team's not going to live by it. And then customers don't get to live that experience.
Tell me what your day-to-day looks like.
My day-to-day, it's a different day every day.
Yeah. So what are some typical things that you may go through on a day-to-day basis, like your responsibilities? Because obviously, you're not in there probably as much, scooping ice cream and things like that, or, making the chocolate. What are you overseeing?
Yeah, absolutely. So Grant and I kind of divide and conquer. My brother Grant really runs the store division and I run the corporate division. So I spend a lot of my time traveling, going to conferences. I got home Sunday. I was gone for about 10 days before that. Some of it was out in Arizona, hiking the Grand Canyon. Some of it, majority of it, was in Orlando, Miami, where was I? Nashville. I think those were the 3 states.
Boots on the ground.
Yeah, boots on the ground conferences, simply hustling. And that's kind of a lot of my time. When I'm not at conferences, obviously I'm on lots of calls, meeting people in person. I have a lunch after this with a mentor from the University of Tampa. It's kind of just all over the place. We have the warehouse too in Tampa, which I always try when I'm home to spend a little bit of time over there to be present because as a leader, no matter how busy you are, it's so important to stay present and show your team that you're willing to, get your hands dirty, show up, even if it's just to say hello, because life is all about relationships and business is all about relationships, whether it's with your clients or your employees too.
I think that's a great point to make, and I really want to stress that to the audience. So, our main office we have 9 offices. Our main office is in St. Petersburg, and then we have 8 satellite offices throughout the Tampa Bay area. And people say, how often do you go to the St. Pete office, which is us, the HQ, the mothership where, our employees are? And I say as often as I can. They go, why? Well, you can work from home. You can go one of your other offices. You can be on the streets, on the road. Why do that? And I go, because I want them to know I'm there.
Yeah.
Like, I think the biggest problem that we see is absentee leadership, and I think that causes problems in its own.
Absolutely.
When your employees feel like they're working harder than you are, I think that's the beginning of the end for a lot of people, and I think that's where issues start, drama starts, etc. When they think they're doing more than the boss does.
Yeah.
So when you can have that personal connection with your people, and they know that you're 1, always available, and 2, always there in some capacity, I think that's huge.
Absolutely. No, you're totally right. You have to show up. Otherwise, they're not going to show up. Why should they?
Yeah, if you're not going to care about it, why are they going to care about it?
Yeah,
so
exactly.
Buying in is a huge thing. So I'm going to circle back. When we were talking about the innovations that you guys are doing, is it a more organic process, or is it just, hey, we feel like we need to do something new this quarter, a seasonal thing? Like, how did the innovation process really, happen?
Yeah. So in the store, we've been learning the past 3 years, simply put. We didn't have a business plan to start. We didn't really have a plan to start. We kind of just jumped in and figured it out. So as of year 3, we kind of decided, seasonal products, that's kind of be the focus. And that's where the strawberry cups came in. That was the first, other than hot chocolate during winter, which is kind of a expected seasonal product. The strawberry cups were the first seasonal product that we kind of hit hard. And now, we have that whole Dubai craze, Dubai chocolate bars, Dubai strawberry cups, Dubai sundaes. And then it comes what's next in fall. And I'm not going to drop it, but there's something exciting coming in the fall season.
Stay tuned. We will make sure that we share that, and you will share it with your 650,000 Instagram followers, which I'm still very jealous of.
Yeah, I say that.
It's a
little bit.
I'm just saying, but then, I will defend myself here. It is a little bit easier, I would think, to show off delectable treats than car accidents. So I'm just going to go
If you showed your face, though, people might follow.
I don't know. I may lose followers. So how has the brand, expanded in the last 3 years? Tell me about that.
Yeah. So, in the beginning, year 1, just a little background. When we opened the store, we didn't really have ice cream, right? So we opened the store with the Hampton Chocolate Factory concept from New York. New York's a little bit different than Florida in terms of the people, in terms of the market. After about 4 months, we decided, let's bring in ice cream. We bought a soft serve machine. And we kind of just started to iterate, and Grant specifically just play using the ice cream machine as a playground, using the topics as a playground, crafting this artisan and decadent ice cream sundae that we have right now. And after 3 years, we've kind of created a foundational product line, and now where it's the focus on seasonal products because your product line is kind of that base, right? It's your expected revenue. But what can you do every quarter, every season rather, to continue to elevate the revenue and see that exponential growth? We don't want to be a company growing at 2-3% per year. That's what you do when you're a 100-year business. You're growing from 100 million to 102 million. We're in the beginning. We need to be growing at 20%, 30%, 50%, even 100%. And this year, the store is actually up nearly over 100% year over year. So,
well, you're clearly doing something right. One thing, I mean, yeah, 100%. That's insane, dude. And we were talking about, we're going to keep that between us, but we were talking about some of the numbers that you guys are doing, which is absolutely insane. And I'm super happy for you. I was getting ready this morning to share a story with you, and my wife said, "Hey, what does your day look like?" And I said, "Hey, I said, "Hey," again, we hey each other a lot.
Hey.
I said, "I have a podcast this morning." She goes, "Oh, who's on?" And I go, "Oh, my buddy that owns the chocolate factory."
Yeah.
And she goes, "Oh, that's the guy that sent you the socks, right?" So, which I should have worn today. Shame
that
on
would
me.
have been funny.
Yeah. No, but they were in my dresser, and I was like, and I pulled them out, and I said, "Yeah, look at these. Aren't these sick?" Tell me about how you came up with the idea, almost like an influencer marketing thing, which I'm also going to apply to my business as well. I thought the little care package was like awesome, dude.
Yeah.
Really appreciated and, top of mind. Tell me how you came up with that.
Yeah, it's so funny because I gave everyone socks but myself. So I don't have any socks. We got 100 pairs, and I was like, all right.
I'll give you some Love and Law socks. There we go.
Trade.
There
That'd
you
be perfect.
go. Yeah.
So, I mean, every year we try to build a relationship with our clients. You being a client of ours, we want to make sure that you're appreciated. So we go through our list. We put everybody through this sequence, I guess, if you will, and say, all right, who deserves a gift? What type of gift do they deserve? And socks was kind of a friend of mine by the name of Victoria with the company Sock Fan. She's like, hey, I want to make you socks. And I was like, cool. I like socks.
Yes.
And it was the perfect opportunity to, I'm trying to think of a sock pun. I got to think on that. I don't really have one.
We'll come back to
we'll come back to it, loop around, and just send out socks and, chocolate to people that we really appreciate. And we do it every year. And this year was a little bit later just because we were so busy during Valentine's Day. We weren't able to do a Valentine's Day.
Well, that's heavy for you, bro. I mean, that's
we usually
big
like
chocolate
to do,
season. Yeah.
we love working with you.
Mm-hmm.
But this year it's just
there's your pun. There
we go. It was a surprise gift. So I'm happy
I was stoked on it.
Yeah.
I was like, that was really cool and stuff. And I mean, from one business owner to another, to be able to, I guess, in my mind, I break things down a lot differently, now, being a partner on my firm and owning my firm, et cetera.
Yeah.
The detail of, going through, putting that together, picking me, the cost of the socks, the cost of shipping, all those different things. I mean, that takes a lot of thought and effort to be able to go through that process, rather than just sending somebody a text message. So with that being said, one of the things, and I'll drop, basically what I did last year was I hit up Austin, and that's kind of, we became buddies and met through mutual friends. And I was like, hey, let's do a Willy Wonka style golden ticket. Thank you for working, with our firm, to people that we've worked with, et cetera. And you guys knocked it out of the park. And it was just so different. So tell me about, when you're maybe with a corporate client, how that process goes of facilitating their idea.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, your idea is one of the coolest ideas that
you.
We've exeted. And I
put it out there on the podcast so nobody else would take it, just so they know it's mine.
Yeah,
so it's like,
and if they do take it, they're going to give you credit.
Yeah.
They're going to put your logo on the bottom, sponsored by Love and Law. But I mean, the process, usually it's a straightforward process. I mean, companies come to us and they're essentially kind of looking for a solution to stay present, stay front of mind with their clients. And no better way to do it than chocolate. A lot of companies will send out alcohol nowadays. They'll send out stuff, but I always pose the question, what if the person doesn't like alcohol?
So right here, I don't, and it's by choice and things like that. I just got sick. I went out of my 20s. I had kids, stopped feeling like, wanted to stop feeling like crap.
Yeah.
Dude, I don't drink.
Yeah.
And it's not like, and God bless those people, I've always put that out there that, if they do have some issue with alcohol, I don't. It's not my thing anymore.
Yeah. So like sending you a bottle of wine, you would have been like, thanks.
Appreciate you. People started bringing me Red Bull, which is probably way worse.
Yeah. That's hilarious.
That's like 100%, but it is good.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I'm super like, hey, I appreciate it, but
Yeah, it's
probably
kind of
isn't
one of
going to
those
go to
things. So
use.
I kind of have came up with this concept that chocolate's the gift the family can enjoy, right?
Hmm.
Wine is something that maybe an individual may or may not enjoy, but you send chocolate to somebody. First of all, everybody loves chocolate. If they don't like a caramel, they like the nut in the box. If they don't like the nut, they like the fruit. There's always something in there. It's not like it's one type of chocolate that they're not going to enjoy. And then most importantly is they're going to share it with their friends and family or their coworkers. You can't really share a bottle of wine at the office. That's a gift for an individual.
It's a little awkward.
Yeah, I don't think you're gonna be pouring, wine in the
No,
office.
yeah, no.
You might get somebody might show up at your door the next day.
They won't be happy with
Yeah.
that. So.
So, that's kind of the thing, and we'll put logos on boxes. What we did with yours was, again, one of my favorites, where it's the Willy
Oh,
Wonka
dude, it was
golden
so sick.
ticket.
Yeah.
But usually it's a simple logo with a ribbon to match. One of our points of difference with the corporate gifts is our ability to customize, and your representation of that was really in the spotlight. Just being able to customize, create this perfect vision of a gift that people would dream about, that we're able to execute, and then their clients or employees are able to experience, really.
In a day and age, and I'm going to shout out my partner, Ian Levingood, right now. So when he was, we would talk about it as a firm, and when we do merch,
Yeah.
when we have socks, we have hats, we have, t-shirts, different things and stuff like that we give out to friends and clients and et cetera, right? And, I was talking to Ian, and I was like, I was always of the, cheap, as many as you can get quantity wise. So it's like single print t-shirts, one color lettering, trying to do kind of a quantity over quality, nice shirts, but like
sure.
I said, not spending, the big bucks on stuff. And he was always about, spending the money, and our hats and our socks turned out so amazing. So shout out to Ian. One of the things was obviously cost. And he goes, we spend money on these things because of staying power.
Yeah.
And I say that because in a time where there's so much content out there and there's so much stuff that if you don't have staying power, very similar to like thinking about your socks or your gifts and things like that, what are you doing it for? It's like, would you rather spend $4 on merch or $5 on merch and get a, short reaction, or would you rather spend $15, I'm just throwing out for example purposes, and get years of staying power? Where they, I saw somebody the other day, I gave somebody one of our 11 Law mugs, and I saw it in one of their Instagram videos that they were using it, or their stories. And I was like, dude, that's great.
Yeah,
that's
awesome.
what I want to see. Or people will send me, hey, I'm wearing the socks, or I'm wearing the hat, or something like that. Or, you have to have staying power. And I think that's what you guys have really created with your packaging and your, corporate gifts and things like that is, oh, wow, yeah, they sent me the chocolate, or they sent me the socks, or they, the packaging was great. It was really put together, rather than like, oh, cool, another mouse pad.
Yeah.
Or whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
So.
No, it's funny you say that, because we're even going further in terms of the experience, because we talked about details earlier, right? The differences in the details, and being able to say to somebody, I remembered that, versus, it was just another one of those, is the difference. Because if somebody forgets it, it's almost like you spent the money on nothing, right?
Correct. Oh, yeah. You just
throwing it out the door.
I would, and I guess this is just growing and getting, seeing what works and what doesn't, trying, failing, et cetera. I would rather spend $1,000 on, some type of merch that's going to have staying power, some type of gift that's going to have staying power, than $1,000 on ads and, Facebook ads for the month.
That's another thing to think about
huge.
too, because you're going to spend that money on your P&L, right?
Yeah.
It's going to fit in there. Just where are you going to put it? Where are you going to see the biggest ROI? And that's where it comes to just realizing, and it took me a while to even think about this, not even, the merch equation, but just on a P&L, right? You're going to spend the money, just where's going to be the best ROI? And it kind of comes back to what do you value most, right? Your clients, or, maybe you spend less, or you spend $1,000 less on your travel because you decide not to go to that fancy dinner, but then you spend $1,000 on your clients and it brings back $5,000.
Correct.
Right?
Yeah, 100%. No, I agree with you. How have you battled? So, I think it's, now more than ever, as everybody's about health.
Yeah.
Candy, chocolate, ice cream is not, considered maybe the healthiest.
Dark chocolate.
I was going to go there. Yeah. I did my research, man.
Right.
Tell me how you guys have combated with that, or is it even a concern? Because it's like everybody knows what they're getting into when they're, having some ice cream.
Yeah. So at first I thought you were going to ask, like, how did I not turn out into an Oompa Loompa?
Well, you run 50 miles or in training for Ironman.
Yeah,
so.
I mean, but the customers.
You see what you did with the Willy Wonka theme there?
Yeah. There
well
you
done,
go.
Well done.
The customers, they know what they're getting into, right? You don't come to the Hampton Chocolate Factory for a snack.
Yeah.
It's not really a thing. You come for a decadent dessert. And when you come, you kind of expect to fully, we like to say, luxuriously indulge, right? You're not coming for something that's cheap. You're not coming for something that's low quality. You're coming for something that's very high quality. And you're going to taste high quality, and you're also going to feel high quality after you eat it too. And I just say that when you come, just be ready for it because it is that good.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
How do you servicing the Tampa Bay area, obviously, and we'll talk about more about the shop than the corporate side
Yeah.
with this question. You have young people, kids, you have, date night, you have,
Yep.
adults, et cetera. How do, different, demographics of
Yeah.
people. How do you serve or, do you think about that when you're serving your market?
Yeah, it's a great question. So kind of going back to like the foundational products plus the seasonal products, right? Each product, foundational products almost appeal to everyone, right? Everyone likes ice cream, but there's different flavors, right? Somebody that likes nuts is usually they're a little bit older and more mature. Somebody that might like a strawberry shortcake or a fudge brownie bliss, they might be on the younger side and they might still be able to indulge to the nth degree. Somebody older, maybe they don't have that metabolism. So they just want some, hazelnut toffee on there. But the strawberry cup, right? That was a specific, and the way we kind of created that viral product was influencer marketing and specifically focusing on the University of Tampa, right? Influencers from University of Tampa coming into the store. It became this aspirational product that all of the, and funny enough, University of Tampa girls just wanted to come in and get it and said, oh my God, I need that strawberry cup, milk chocolate, dark chocolate, white chocolate. They wanted it. And it became this product for them. And of course,
Is that like the club vibe real quick? Like the university subtle plug, all the University of Tampa girls come over through our shop. So all the dudes are just showing up at random times.
That's kind of where I was going.
There
It's
you
like
go,
whatever
okay.
those girls are doing, everybody wants to do.
Fair enough.
So they're posting it on Instagram. Obviously their friends want it because they got it. Next thing you know, all the guys that follow them, they want it because the girls are there. Maybe they can meet one of them there. Maybe the parents are seeing. I mean, it just becomes this viral thing. I mean, everyone wants what those girls are doing. And that's kind of what happened.
How do you think, we've talked about this, before, how important is location to your business? Because
Yeah.
obviously for you to open up with, we talked about it in more detail, without foot traffic, without, maybe a younger demographic, et cetera, it almost doesn't make any sense for you to open up in, Gibsonton, throw out random Riverview, for
Yeah.
example. It's probably not
Not a fit.
as advantageous. So tell me about how that thought process works when
Yeah.
you're picking locations and growing the business.
Absolutely. It's a great question. And, we're looking for stores right now, second store, third store, fourth store, fifth store. And it comes down to, you said it, location, and you said it, foot traffic, right? For us, we want the foot traffic to be able to cover our base expenses. What we do on the marketing side, that's really the profit. If we don't have that foundational base covered, then it becomes this equation of we have to make it work. Why can't we just find a spot, pay for, a little bit more premium of rent, but have this foundational revenue where we know that, okay, there's going to be, X in costs and that's going to be covered. And now it's just up to us to make our profits. And, we're looking for second stores right now. We actually, over the past couple months, we've toured the Miami market. We've toured Orlando, Sarasota, Naples. It looks like to date, we're talking about Naples potentially being our second store. And it's funny because my parents live there.
Oh, do they?
Yeah.
Okay.
So
I went to law school down there. I love Naples. We talk about it. My wife and I talk about it all the time. What a
Yeah.
great time,
Naples
that
is
we had
great.
there. Oh, yeah.
And
Nicest people. And I said there was this, I've told this story before. There's Jane's on 3rd. It's like a breakfast spot.
Yeah.
Well known. I don't know if you've been or not. Well known
3rd
breakfast
Avenue?
spot. Yeah.
Yeah.
So right off 5th there.
Yeah.
And I said, you would learn more sitting in breakfast and just trying to meet people than you would at any or Harvard MBA program.
Yeah.
Like the old heads there, I
Yeah.
call them that, of just like this insane knowledge. It's
Yeah.
just like crazy. Naples is great. What is it? The Mercado area? It's been a minute. And Fifth Ave and
Fifth
stuff.
Ave. Yeah, we're looking at Fifth Ave, but Mercado, Fifth Ave, those are kind of the two hot spots. I mean, Naples just seems that Fifth Avenue is it's just the main strip.
It's crushing, yeah.
It's, there's so much development going on in Naples. There's so much money flowing through there. And there is a lot of schools. There's colleges, there's high schools, and it's a dense population of people. Maybe not as dense as somewhere like Tampa, but I mean, the surrounding areas, you got Fort Myers, you got all these surrounding areas that people can travel from, and people travel to our store here in Tampa. There's no reason they wouldn't travel to Naples.
Well, the other thing is too, real quick with Naples, is that the people have the money to, if they spend $100,
Yeah.
$150 on dinner, they can also go and spend $10 or $20 on
Yeah.
a dessert. If you open that up in a, like I said, I'm not hating on Riverview or Gibsonton or anything like that. If they're spending, $100 on dinner for a family, they may be skipping dessert just because
Yeah.
it's more suburban, more
Yeah.
middle class, et cetera. So I'm sure that comes into that
Absolutely.
analysis as well as, are the funds there, even if it is, great to go to.
Yeah.
Naples is awesome. We'll get into one of the bigger questions. We've touched on it many times up until this point. How has social media affected your brand?
Social media has been the core. Simply put, it was, and I give Grant the credit here. It was our first year in business. He was a
Are
student.
you guys even doing really paid ads?
No, so we haven't spent $1. We haven't spent $1.
No way. That's so awesome.
$1, no, not on paid ads. It's all been organic and it's all been figured out. Grant, I remember first year, all he did was he's on Instagram. He's on his phone making reels every single day. And it kind of got to the point where it was, what the heck are you doing? He just antisocial, just fully dialed in. But in anything in life, if you don't obsess about it, you're not going to achieve what
How
you
long?
want to.
3.5 years?
I mean, well, now we're at I'll tell the deep story. So,
Yeah.
So it was, I think, July of our first year. And we were at 3,000 or 4,000 followers. He decided, you know what, by the end of the month, I'm going to get us to 10,000 followers. He told everyone. He told me, my dad, girlfriend. He told everybody in the store. And everyone kind of, I was like, let's do it. Go ahead. And in the back of my mind, I'm like, oh, that's a tough
Yeah.
stretch. And everyone else is kind of like, all right, let's see it happen. 7 days left in the month. We're at maybe we've gained 500 followers.
Which is respectable.
Video goes viral. We go from, call it 4,000 followers to 73,000 followers. Pretty much, I don't want to say overnight, but within like 2 or 3 days.
That's insane.
And then after that, we jolted to like 150,000 followers, and it kind of just became this oh shoot moment. And from there, I mean, we became viral, and then consistently growing year after year. Not just sitting back after you hit it and going, I made it. Continuing to dial in and continuing to get better. You said 650,000. That wasn't, from 150 to 650 wasn't easy, and from 4 to 150 wasn't easy. And it's just been this continuous improvement and continuous focus on the social media. We have a social media team now that's been trained to really manage and curate viral content. If you ask Grant, we were with somebody over the weekend, and the guy said, what's the social media secret? The secret for Instagram specifically is 2 things. 1 is viral content, and 2 is post a reel every day. And I'm speaking Grant's words right now. When he listens to this, he's going to say, because he said this last weekend, and it's the truth, because you're not going to go viral for a post. You're not going to go viral for a story. You will go viral for a reel. And if you do it every day consistently and continue to better your craft, focusing on how can I improve, focusing on what's working, what's not, eventually, whether it's a month, a year, or a couple of years, I can't tell you that. It's up to you to figure that out, but eventually you'll figure it out.
Absolutely. I mean, I'll do photos of the family and stuff like that. But for the most part, I mean, I'm posting reels probably 80-85% of my posts. People don't really respond well to stagnant photos, not as much as they do with reels.
Yep.
And it's, very much about, likes, but view count as well. I mean, as long as people, if they're engaging with it, that's, one step further on the analysis. But really the views are what I'm caring about right now. And then, secondarily getting the engagement and the likes. And then third on top of that is getting the comments. But as long as I have their attention, it's a great starting point for me.
Absolutely.
So.
And attention of people that aren't already following you, right?
Correct.
Because that's the whole
I
thing.
check that religiously now. So it's like, okay, which is a great part of, their insights, basically they call it their data is, what percentage of non-followers versus followers are actually looking at your content. If you're at 90% followers looking at your content, it's like, cool.
Yeah,
like
you already have that.
My friends know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Awesome. So
yeah.
How do you guys want to expand? What does that look like? We kind of touched on it with the different locations.
Yeah.
Tell me about the different, sides of expanding the business.
For sure. So the overarching vision of the Hampton Chocolate Factory is to become a 100-year generational legacy brand, essentially becoming the gift of choice and the most famous dessert. Now, that's a lot of words. What does that mean? Well, Harry and David's a company out in I think they started in Oregon, actually, and they're famous for their pears. They were actually 2 brothers. They became this $600 million conglomerate of essentially the go-to gift of choice. That's the vision for the gifting side, where people think corporate gifts, they think the Hampton Chocolate Factory. On the store side, which I like to say is a lot more sexy than the corporate gifts, it becomes this the vision is 20 destination stores and destination cities. That might include 5 to 7 stores in the state of Florida, and then expanding across the Northeast, New York, DC, all those big cities, eventually Vegas. Think about the biggest cities in the country. And eventually you'll see a Hampton Chocolate Factory there. And we really want to become this and are becoming this aspirational brand where people kind of look up, social media helps create that relevance of people look up to us as a dessert that they aspire to get. They travel to get it. They want to experience it. They dream about it. I mean, the amount of people that come into our store now that say they came from Hong Kong, Singapore, Cuba, you name the country or you name the state, just to try our ice cream is nuts. And we kind of see the destination stores across the country being the foundation. We don't want a franchise. We don't want 100 stores. We want 20 stores so that people, they can't get it anywhere. They have to get it in a destination and come to the Hampton Chocolate Factory, which is a destination.
How do you, when you're growing like this, how do you make the analysis of, I need to hire somebody to do this. I need to delegate this. Like you said, for example, your brother was crushing the social media and then you hired a social media team for that. How does that analysis go for you guys as you're going through the process?
Yeah, we've become a lot better at the analysis part. In the beginning, it was just, I think we need somebody.
Yeah.
Now it's kind of, okay, well, we have all these projections in line. The data is the core, right? If you don't have your numbers in check, whether it's your P&L, your projections, or just anything, you're kind of flying blind. So now we're very in tune with the data. And when we look at our projections and we say, this is the trajectory we're going, and I like to think of this concept of hiring forward, right? In my mind, we're growing so fast that profitability is very important, yes. But at the same time, we meaning Grant and I, don't want to get so stuck in the weeds in the day-to-day that we can't focus on growing the business, because when that happens,
working on your business rather than in your business.
When that happens, the business kind of, the growth slows down because nobody is, think about it this way. Nobody's looking over the wall. Everyone's just looking at the wall. You need somebody looking over the wall and saying you need to go left, right, straight, or diagonal. Otherwise, you're kind of just going to keep slowly inching forward. So in terms of hiring, I'm always of a mind of hire forward, which means, think about your strategy 1 to 3 years out and work it backwards, right? Who are the people you're going to need? When do you think you'll need them? And if you find the right person 6 months prior to that, you better keep them because, hey, you might end up with $10,000 or $20,000 less in profit for the year. But the following year, that number is going to double. You'll probably make an extra $40,000 because you were able to move just so much faster with the right personnel in place. So it really is this concept of hiring forward and making sure that you're looking backwards a couple years out to ensure that you know who you're looking for.
I can tell you over the last 18 months in my business is, I was, and I still am a lawyer, of course, but before that I was a lawyer. I was, working cases, bringing in cases, litigating cases. That was my job. You know what I mean? Now that shift has changed where it's, I have a fantastic team around me that, help with a lot of the legal work and the heavy lifting on that side. So now it's about growing the business and running the business so I can take care of those people.
Yep.
And the numbers, like you said, are the foundation of making, probably 80-90% of the decisions. Sometimes you got to just go with your gut, just got to say, take this chance and see how things are going to go. But I have so many spreadsheets and charts that I'm condensing down and, learning how to review P&L. I got to go back to like my second year of undergraduate, learning how to, in accounting, reading P&Ls.
Yep.
So looking at those P&Ls, looking at marketing expenses, looking how quick we're closing out cases, looking what the average fee is, looking how many cases we're bringing in, how many cases are actually sticking, because some client, there's some people that don't have insurance that we can't go after. All of those numbers are paramount to be able to say, what is our marketing budget next year? What is our, run rate next year? What does our profitability look like? What is our profitability based on each employee, et cetera, et cetera? And I think any business owner that isn't tracking their numbers and is just kind of going through this bobbing and weaving and guessing will probably not grow past 4 or 5 employees.
Yeah.
Maybe a couple more, but I think it'll be difficult beyond that point because you don't know what's next.
Yeah.
So, and to your point too, to be able to see a 2, 3, 5% growth year over year, if you're doing $100 million in revenue, maybe that's okay. But, in kind of both of our scales, if you're not seeing 20, 30, 50% revenue growth year over year, and then proper profitability to hopefully follow behind that.
Yeah.
What are you doing?
Yeah. What are you doing?
Yeah.
You're kind of falling behind.
You did the same thing last year. Congrats, I guess.
Yeah.
So numbers are foundational, and I would say that should be, once you get, your first 3 or 4 employees of, helping you, operate the business where you can remove yourself a little bit out of the business. if you don't understand how to read numbers, you need to hire somebody that does,
Yeah.
or you need to pay a consultant or an accountant or something like that to run you through your numbers and create your projections. Because if you don't know where you're going, you're not going to know how to get there.
That's a great quote.
Save that. That's a good
Yeah,
one.
that was
So
good.
I'm going to go, I'm, I haven't had this conversation too many times on the podcast.
Okay.
So do you think that college helped you? Shout out to UT. They have a beautiful
Yep.
campus. I went to St. Leo, which was also amazing. Obviously I had to go to a graduate school after the fact. And
Yep.
so it was kind of a prerequisite in order to become an attorney. But otherwise, for you, do you think college helped you?
I'm gonna
Helped
say,
you?
yeah, absolutely. It's a great question, and I'll look at it two ways. When I was in college, and I went to the University of Delaware for 2 years, and then I went to the University of Tampa for 2 years. So I got,
Too cold. Had to get out of there.
I'm a New Yorker, so
Fair enough.
it
Yeah,
was,
you're
it
used
was
to it.
honestly, it was warmer there. But
Oh.
Florida's a better lifestyle for sure. I'm happy I'm here. But I looked at college as really, how can I build my network? And if I were to look at college, that was the one thing that, I don't want to say the one thing. I had a lot of fun too, and I learned a lot. But that was one of the most pivotal things, was gaining mentors and building relationships with people. There's a mentor of ours now, Mr. Benson Reisman. His name's on the fitness center at the University of Tampa.
Nice.
He's the guy that I remember I met. He was one of the first. When I transferred to school here, I knew nobody. I think I knew one person. And I basically went to the entrepreneurship center, and I was an entrepreneurship student. I said, hey, I'm new. Who can I meet? And I got introduced to him. I remember having a video call with him in 2020. Here we are 5 years later, and we still meet with him pretty much every quarter.
That's awesome.
And, that was the one big takeaway from school, was the network and the relationships. And I don't say that I didn't learn from the education side, but to be honest with you, I wasn't mature enough at the time. I remember one of my professors used to tell me, like, you have to understand your numbers, you live and die by your P&L. And I kind of brushed it off. I was like, I don't need to know this stuff. Like, this is too much on a spreadsheet. I don't like Excel.
I
don't
got
wanna have to
happy
worry.
hour later, and
Yeah, I don't want to worry about it. Now I went back to him and I was like, you were so right. Like, I spend a lot of my time at the end of the month reviewing the P&L, and that's, again, you live and you die by it. It's live and die by the P&L. So
dude, I think about it every once in a while, and I'm like, I would have gotten so much. I call. Let me even take a step back.
yeah,
College is an ecosystem.
Yeah.
It teaches you how to grow up.
Yep.
I need to be here at a certain time. I need to go to the gym. I need to take care of myself. I need to learn how to have fun the right way, because obviously a lot of us overindulge our,
Yep.
freshman and sophomore year, and you have to have that growing up process.
Yep.
I need to, take care of myself, do my laundry, et cetera, et cetera. It teaches us how to kind of grow up. The secondary, like you said, which I think is one of the biggest facets, is it teaches us how to network. It's kind of that forced networking where you have the opportunity to meet a lot of people, learn how to, potentially be a leader, get involved, all of those different types of things.
Yeah.
As far as learning, I feel like college, learning is almost third in the,
Yeah.
college checklist or repertoire. And the reason, like you said, I wasn't mature enough. I remember sitting in, and going back now and looking at these things, I remember sitting, it was an 8 a.m. class. It was a Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 8 a.m. class, my freshman year. And it was an honors class, and we're talking about like the Iliad and
Yeah.
Aristotle
Yeah.
and, like all of these different, like it was, all about philosophy, and it was basically intro to philosophy.
Yeah.
And I was like, I am nowhere near, do I have the capability or the focus to really dive into this material? Like and now I go back and read some of it and like, oh, Plato, et cetera.
Yeah.
And, now I feel like I have the ability to comprehend it and the interest to comprehend it, but I could care less at 18 years old.
Yeah.
So I almost wish college was something you did like at like 25,
Yeah.
where you had experience and then you went to college. And I think that's why adult learners get so much more out of it.
Yeah.
Because they figured out how to learn, how to grow up, how to be mature, and
Yeah.
not worry about the next happy hour.
That's an interesting point. Because you really do grow, and everyone grows up at different paces. Being in a business, I feel like I've aged 10 years in the past year.
Yeah.
But a lot of people, by the time they're 30, they kind of get to that point where they're mature enough, they're able to learn. And it kind of becomes this equation of, maybe I can go back to school and learn. And that's why, like you said, a lot of adult learners get a lot more out of school because they're ready for it. When you're in your early 20s, school kind of just becomes this big party. And you learn how to live, you learn how to be responsible. But freshman and sophomore year, you're experimenting, you're figuring it out.
Absolutely. And we made it on the other side, and I think we did all right
Yep.
for ourselves.
I think so too.
Do you feel that chocolate may be easier to market because people already love it?
It's a good question. I would say no, because there's a lot of chocolate companies out there, right? If you make a nice car, nobody's gonna, it has to be something spectacular in order for people to really like something. I would say this. There's a lot of good chocolate out there. There's a lot of good desserts. The way you stand out is by being different. If you want to do something that's the same as everyone else, nobody's going to get really excited about it. And being different could be seen in multiple different ways. It could be the packaging, it could be the product, it could be the experience that comes with it. And all three of those put together are what kind of create a viral product. And for us, it's kind of just been this idea of being different. Like with the chocolate, really we focus on the packaging. With the ice cream and desserts, we focus on the product. And across the board, we focus on the customer experience. So each product kind of has a different lane in terms of how can we make this different. And, the customer is obviously the beneficiary of that. So chocolate, can it be easier to market? I'm going to say yes in a broad sense, but I'm going to say it's definitely not easy. And it really comes down to how can you be different in order to make it easy. It's not just going to be easy. You hand somebody a truffle and you hand somebody the same truffle and you say, this company's Godiva and this company's just starting out. It's not going to be easier to market. But
No.
you add something to the truffle that's different, that makes it look unique and something that people are going to get excited about, you have a shot. But there's a lot of companies like chocolate. There's a lot of companies that have been around for 100 years. It's kind of the industry. When I go to conferences, I tell our story probably 100 times a day. And people are like, what makes you different? I'm like, well, we're just getting started. And, for us, we're not trying to build a business to sell. We're trying to build a business to last. And that's kind of the chocolate industry. It's a family business industry. People have been around for 100 years. So their brand is recognized. They're nationwide and they're kind of already at that point. So it's pretty hard to catch up unless you have something different.
When did you feel successful?
I don't know. I haven't reached it yet.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Still
It's
going
not
I
there
ask on
yet.
every podcast and I ask
Yeah.
you, so you're still just going through the
No.
motion. Is there a time where a goal or something that you feel that like if you achieve that, that there'll be a certain, I guess euphoric feeling of success or?
Yeah. I mean, the overarching goal, 100 years, 100 million, right? We want to get to 100 million in the next 10 to 12 years. So maybe at that point, I'm going to feel like we made it. I'm sure at 10 million, I feel like we made it too. But, you feel like you made it for a day. And then you're like, oh, wait, there's a lot more to do. I made it, right? You celebrate and then you get back to work. So there's a lot of work to be done. And that's where you read books and it talks about, the Kobe Bryants, the LeBron James, and how they became great, the Michael Jordans. Well, after their first finals, they didn't sit on the couch, eat chips, and have a beer. They went right back to the locker room and got right back to work. And that's what makes a great. And it's just continuously putting in the effort, basically until you run out of gas. And you just have to keep striving to get better. My life philosophy is this 4-letter phrase. It's called BVOM, the best version of myself. And obviously the Tony Robbins pyramid talks about all the different facets of it. You have your finances, your relationships, your wealth, all these things. And each one of them needs attention. And how can you continue year after year to get better? Because life is it's a sprint. It's a marathon, but many sprints in between. You're sprinting 1 year after 1 year after 1 year, and you really need to measure your success after 1 year. And you can't run 26 miles or live 26 years and not measure how you did each year in between. Otherwise, you're not going to know where you were after 26 years.
I just saw another video about this where there was Jim Carrey doing the graduation speech. And
Yeah.
he's like, so many of you are sitting in this room right now and are so goal oriented. And I wanted to do this and this and this and have this much money and have these things and have this family and this, etc. He goes, go ahead and now sit there. Or something along the lines of picture your life. And is it, are you really that happy? Say, for example, you have all those things. What's
Yeah.
next? And I think that's one of the kind of double-edged sword type analogies with goal setting. It's like, okay, when you get everything, what's next? Okay, you still have to keep going. You still have to go to work the next day. You still have to take care of your family the next day. You still have to do all these things. So while while goal setting is great, I think it's more important to have the mindset of, okay, I met that goal. What's next?
Yep.
And not to the point of your detriment by any means. Obviously, celebrate those wins and enjoy yourself and, enjoy the journey. But at the end of the day, you can't just give up because, you hit that milestone.
Yeah.
There's plenty more to go down the road.
Goals are really benchmarks
Correct.
that you're on the path to success. That's what a goal is, right? The goal is not the end. It's actually the beginning. All it's showing is that, hey, I'm doing the right things to I'm doing the right things to continue to push me forward. You have your, BHAGs, right? Your huge, big, hairy, audacious goals, huge goals, whatever you want to call them. And that's something that's 10, 20, 50 years out. Working backwards, all the goals, the 1 years, the 3 months, those are all the KPIs you're looking at to make sure you're on track for that goal. And goals, like you said, they're really showing you that you have to keep going and you're not going to stop working after you achieve the goal. It's really it's really a new beginning after you achieve the goal.
And I tell people too, and I've really become a big proponent of this, of small wins and counting small wins to lead those big goals. And it's something as simple as, even in your personal life, hey, I made it to the gym today.
Yeah.
I didn't eat like crap today. I hung out with my kids today. I, made 50 phone calls. Take those small wins, and make sure you track those small wins because ultimately they lead to those accomplishing those big goals. So, again, don't forget about the journey along the way, but, big hairy goals are fantastic, audacious goals, but, it doesn't mean you stop going. So with all of that being said, we're going to wrap up here. Where can people find you?
People can find Hampton Chocolate Factory on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, just Hampton Chocolate Factory. That's the ticker. That's the tag. Find us, follow us, and stay tuned. And honestly, if you stay tuned now, you're going to be in for an exciting journey ahead.
Well, that sounds awesome. We're going to put all of their information in the description below, so make sure you guys check that out. As always, we appreciate you, Austin, coming on the show. Not an accident podcast. Make sure, so my producer doesn't yell at me, that you like and subscribe. And as always, as we are exiting out, it is not an accident that Austin is as successful as he is. Thank you, my friend, for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
We'll see you guys on the next episode.